So hello to everybody that's joining us. Hello, Devika. She is our amazing ambassador for India. So welcome.
Good morning.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good morning to you and a good evening to everyone in India.
So we're thrilled to hear from all of the speakers that you've gathered today, Devika. I know that you're going to be guiding us through, but I just wanted to welcome everybody that's joining us. We have 1,000 people that RSVP'd, and so we hope to have at least 300 or 400 joining us today. And that's always appropriate for India because everything in India is big and better and, you know, enormous. And so we're inspired to have an enormous afternoon with you, or morning, if for the guests that are joining us from the United States. I understand that you have compiled a lineup which is going to take us through the north, south, east, and west of the country. And so we look forward to having this regional interpretation of India and its incredible power to inspire hope in everything that you and the speakers are doing. We're now in our 3rd year of the Hope Forum, so it's definitely a long-term movement, and we're very excited that this is the first time that we travel to India. Lee and I are India files. We've been there many, many times, so we feel already like we're home and present with you, even though we're in Italy today. And we look forward to it. Lee, do you want to say anything?
I'm so happy to be traveling there. I've been going to India since I was, I think, 26. I've worked there. I've traveled so many times. It's one of my countries I love so much because of its beauty, its craft, its people, its happiness, its food, its fragrances, its colors. So for whatever we do in life, you know, which is all concerning aesthetics, of course, this is a country of reference, as many of our audiences, I think, will agree on. So yes, I'm just anxious to hear everything, to share everything. I'm so happy we can bring this hope from this part of the world through the universe. And it's such a beautiful way also to enter the period of holidays, because I think it's very appropriate that we be with you in the energy of India. Thank you so much.
So Devika, we'll let you take it away, and also to introduce yourself, because we were very lucky to be introduced to you because of Priti Gopinath. And
thank you, Priti.
Yeah, so we're very grateful for this introduction, because you are truly the perfect person to bring everybody together. And it's been a very inspiring process to Zoom with you and prepare today's event.
There you go. Thank you so much. So I've put together, like I said, an eclectic mix of people carefully picked for this presentation, because I wanted to showcase to the world my country in all its diversity. So I've got Margaret and Amitro from the far east of India. Margaret is from Nagaland, the easternmost district that you can find in this country. And just slightly west of her, still in the east, is Amitro, who works with weavers in Bengal. And then I come down south, and we have a wonderful story about the brown cotton revolution that Sushma and Ravi have started up. And Dr. Reggie and Dr. Lalita will present their wonderful 30-year-old project that they have been doing in a remote valley, the tribals in the southernmost state in India called Tamil Nadu. After which we will have Nishit from the westernmost corner of India, and Shruti up there in the mountains in Kashmir, and Sharadeep in the heart of India. Why do I do what I do? You see, I had a very privileged childhood and life. I am a 4th generation literate in my family, which is a big thing in India, because literacy is still pretty dismal and tough to achieve for many, many people, many of my fellow citizens. And I thought, while I cannot shun or reject my rather anglicized upbringing, why don't I put it to good use and not whittle it away by doing nothing about it? And after my design and business management training, I took up my first project in the crafts sector, not because I wanted to, but it just came my way. And then I was just sold to this faith. So if ever there was a religion that I had to choose to follow, it would be one that promoted handmade. And pretty often in my circle of friends and the design circles and family, I'm called the craft evangelist. So what I do for a living and what I've been doing for the past 30 years is typically in my missionary zeal, I don't stick to any one geography or any one place or any one people. I'm there to spread the word, the good word of handmade. And what I do is I take the tools that I learned and I was raised with in my design school and my business school. And this slide is just a little indication of what I do. This is a slide from the work that I did in Banaras, in Varanasi, where the finest of jacquard looms exist. And the best of weaves happen in India, in jacquard. So I take I was given a group of young women and asked to train them up in weaving. They come from weaving backgrounds, but because the geography is steeply patriarchal, the women don't have access to this craft. They do all the menial work like winding and dyeing and washing and all the auxiliary work, but the main act of weaving is done by the men. And so I took them on an inspiration tour of a neighboring town called Sarnath, which is a huge Buddhist pilgrimage. We went to various monasteries and Buddhist temples, and the girls took photographs on their little smartphones, which we had to borrow from their fathers and their brothers, because, hey, why should a girl need a cell phone, right? And then we took inspiration of whatever we saw, and the girls actually sat and sketched out patterns. They studied the language, the motif, the proportions of a traditional Banarsi weave. They created graphs that you can see at the central bottom of the screen. And then they got the jacquard card maker to sit and punch holes. Everything in Banaras is hand done. So even the cards that go into a jacquard machine are hand punched, and the jacquard machine itself is handcrafted. The loom itself is handcrafted. The girls learned from end to end how to do their craft, and they wove the most beautiful saris and yardage. And then we did the entire, rigmarole of business practices, of costing, of pricing, of understanding markets. And now they sell their craft to various people across the country. And why is it that I do what I do is also because not everyone is as privileged as I am. Everyone in this world is either on a higher level or a lower level to the next person. We could be vulnerable because of our gender in India, especially if you're female, and actually, I should say, a non-heterosexual male. Any gender other than that is vulnerable. Our age makes us vulnerable. If you're either too young or too old, we are not as well off as in our living as as youngsters and the middle-aged working population. Poverty makes us vulnerable. Mental and physical special needs make us vulnerable. Displacement because of lack of opportunities, people get displaced and move and migrate. That makes us vulnerable. Being alienated in a place makes us vulnerable. Being in a conflict state, many parts of India have some sort of conflict or the other, makes us vulnerable. difficult geographies like Nagaland and Kashmir, you see, you can be rained under or snowed under for months together, and we don't have basic facilities like electricity. For example, today you will come to know that quite a few of my presenters, my friends, have had to pre-record their presentations and send it across as a backup because we are unsure of our electricity and our network in these remote regions that they are logging in from. So illiteracy is a big problem, and not being aware of our rights. And while these contexts often define us, we have the ability to bring change. We have the ability to define our context. And I show these two slides because this young man sitting on the ground making these pots is Shambhu. He is the son of Jairam, who I started working with in 1992. Jairam was a potter in a remote village near Ranthambhore. And when I started working there, the women didn't even show their faces. Their faces would be hidden by a veil because you cannot show your face to outsiders or to any men. They wouldn't be found outside. They couldn't do pottery. They couldn't practice any of the trades that the men were practicing. Their roles were entirely towards taking care of home and hearth and raising children and looking after the old. 30 years on, Shambhu and his wife, Lali, run their business together. And that's the sort of change, that's the sort of hope that India thrives on. And like Lali and Shambhu, Shambhu was literally born in front of my eyes. So like Lali and Shambhu's father had access to hope 30 years ago, and so he could change, the society could change. There are constantly populations needing this sort of intervention, like this Bakarwal, this nomadic shepherd family who are a part of a large 26,000 family strong minority group in the northernmost state of India called Kashmir. And they're nomadic and they migrate about 300 kilometers up and down the greater Himalayas, quite often as high as 14,000 feet above sea level. Kashmir has been under conflict for over 30 years. Since 1989, we've been stricken with terrorism and militancy and militarization. And curfews are common, and Shruti would be presenting it in greater detail. But while Shruti and I work with the majority population there, I also run a project parallelly on my own with a minority population that has no access to even the most basic living standards. And so while often in a social enterprise, when we start working in a social initiative, the first thing that that sort of hits us in India is poverty and having to do something about economic empowerment. Every social project has a core purpose, which is beyond poverty. And often we get so carried away by poverty that we don't tend to look beyond. In the case of the Shepherdcrafts project with the Bakarwals, it is the fact that they don't have an individual identity or a collective identity, that they are exploited and are very vulnerable in a land that is forever facing strife, terror, and curfews. And like the Bakarwals, there are people across India, like Ruxana in Rajasthan, or Nila, Akka in Sitalingi, or Sakhi in Gujarat, or Mandakini, Gudia, and Bandhana in Bangalore, right next door to my house in a slum next door. They all face vulnerability purely because they're born as females in a largely patriarchal society. And, they really are not raised with much self-worth. Thankfully for them, they are all parts of organizations, of initiatives that instill hope in them and help them realize their self-worth and get ahead in life. But most of all, they raise their daughters to break the cycle and, take on the world. So all these women work For example, Ruxana works at Dastkar Ranthambhore. There is people working at Shepherdcrafts, Self-Employed Women's Association in Gujarat, and Joy at Work in Bangalore, and Porgai Artisans Association in Tamil Nadu. Many of these projects will be covered by the future, the speakers going forward. And so typically what I feel I do in my business of social business design is that at the heart of it is people. So it's always a people who are, who are put through a tough context, and we have to figure a process around this context to address it. And the outcomes are reducing the struggles. And when you reduce struggles, we reduce it through economic empowerment. How we do it through economic empowerment is we teach skills or we enhance existing skills, which can then be taken to global markets. So typically those things that get taken to global markets are the products. So the product is not the product. The product is a byproduct of the whole process. Our product is an enhanced people. And when we have an enhanced people, they spread the word and more people join us. And so a social business design is never static. It expands and expands and expands. And why would I choose these 8 people? Because India is so diverse. It is incredible. No one voice can justify it. We have, if you see in this map right now, to the northernmost point, we have the Greater Himalayas, which are 15,000 feet above sea level. And you can see to the right, that's what Pahalgam, where I work, looks like now. It's covered in snow, and people are at -9, -16 degrees Celsius as we speak. And down to the south in Trivandrum and Cochin, and in the by the sea next to Pondicherry, it's a balmy 35-40 degrees, and we're facing storms, and there might be a cyclone building. You see, so we have the top half of the country cocooned with these mountains. And then, so if India were a rhombus, those 2 sides have the mountains and these 2 sides have the sea. So it's a very, very incredible landscape that I live in. And my landscape defines my culture. For example, this is where Margaret lives, close to where Margaret lives. So the eastern parts have the Himalayas, the lesser Himalayas, and people don't have flat land to grow crop on. So they have to step farm their paddy. And it sees one of the highest rainfalls in the world. I think the wettest place on earth is in close to where Margaret stays. And smack on the other side is Nishit. Where Nishit stays is the westernmost corner of my country, the salt flats of Kutch, and there's the Thar Desert in Gujarat. It's dry, arid, and the average rainfall in the entire year doesn't even measure up to 1/4 of how much it rains in a day where Margaret lives. So you can see how diverse it is. The ones who live in the mountains, when I work with them and I ask them, come, let's go on a holiday, what would you like to see? And the ones sitting in Kashmir tell me, show me the ocean, because when I took them to the ocean, they couldn't believe, they'd never seen a flat horizon. So they kept asking, if we go to the edge, will we fall off? And then the people staying in Ranthambhore, we took them to the mountains, we took them to Kashmir. They had never seen snow in their lives. So that's how incredible my country is. But also, we are a stark study in contrast. I'll have to look at my notes because, there are some statistics which are quite crazy. For example, we are officially just 22 languages, but documented 122 languages across India. And there are 1,599 dialects. That alone makes you realize that no 2 people speak the same tongue, right? Our food, our religious customs, our religions alone, we have over 20 different types of religions and faiths. Our customs, our cultures, everything is equally varied. And so because of that, I have brought to you 8 people from across India, as you can see on the map. I have, because no singular narrative can really do justice to showcasing my beloved country. And these 8 friends of mine are helping me do so. You can see that they are from 4 parts of India, the north, south, east, and west. And we are all in pursuit of our dreams in hope for a better tomorrow for our people and our land. And you will see as the forum continues that even the 8 of us have very conflicting views. We are not on the same page. You will see each of our case studies is radically different from the other. Our approaches are radically different from the other. We are very contradictory to each other, but we address the same root cause of preserving our heritage, our cultural nuances, and of engaging and empowering with our fellow citizens. And also finding sustainable and equitable ways to find a better tomorrow for all of us. We have Shruti, who will present to us her work that she does in Kashmir, way up north. We have Shoradeep, who will present to us from the heart of India in Madhya Pradesh. I will present a little story about a tiger reserve from Rajasthan. Nishit will talk about his trysts in the deserts of Gujarat. Then we have Dr. Reggie and Lalita in a little forest valley way down south in Tamil Nadu. We have Sushma and Ravi in the river plains in Karnataka, south of India. And then we have Omitro and Margaret from the east of India. And here's hoping for a really good show. Let me stop sharing.